Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, KaKi Lee, a mindset coach and healer who's on a mission to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women from around the world who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, I'm excited to share the love and wisdom of book coach, award winning speaker, author of The Key to Happiness, A Journey to Embracing My Story, and the founder of the Studio Press. Her name is AshleyAnns Pereira, and she's joining me all the way from Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really grateful for your time. Before we get started into your journey, I always like to ask my guests this question. I'd love to know what your definition of an awakened feminine is.
Such a good question. And it's funny, for a long time, I felt like I never identified with the feminine side of myself. And I feel like always more and more that I'm always looking to incorporate that more. I feel like I know for myself, I operate so much more from the masculine. But I think really the first thing that comes to mind when I think of an awakened feminine, I think awareness. That has been probably the core of myself. My own journey was just really looking at awareness and looking at all the different parts of myself. So yeah, awareness is the thing that comes to mind.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, Ashley, let's jump into your journey. Can you share with us, what really led you down the path of becoming the book coach, the speaker, the entrepreneur? What was it, that happened for you to go down that path? Did you have a spiritual awakening or a aha moment? Can you share with us what your journey looked like?
Yeah, for sure. In a nutshell, I'm going to give you the very short version of it. But essentially, I do want to paint a backstory because
Yeah.
as a young girl, I was petrified of public speaking, of just confrontation, really speaking anything that was my emotions, speaking my truth. It was the thing that scared me the most. I was always very reserved and really protected my heart from a lot of people, and only was really close to my family. And so I was very shy when I was younger. So this person, it's almost sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, what happened? There was like a complete switch. And but when I was in high school, predominantly, I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. That's really when you're in high school, that's the question. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And I think at 17, 18, that is a question that is so close to impossible to answer. I feel like what's more realistic is, what do you want to do right now or for the next 5 years? So I didn't know. I had no idea. So there was no, thankfully, pressure from my mom to go to school, to go to college and study anything afterwards. So I took some time off to figure it out. And it was almost instantly where I found social service work and child and youth. I knew something inside of me wanted to help people, but I didn't know what that looked like, what that was going to be. So when I found social service work, I just knew that it was the right path, and it was a 2-year program, and I learned so much. And I thought I was going to go down this path of becoming a social worker. And I had my own experience of seeing a psychologist. In about 10 years ago, I was in an accident. I was hit by a car. And so this was when I was in high school. And after that experience with a psychologist, I knew I didn't want that like face-to-face interaction. It didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel empowering, the experience that I had. And from there, I still didn't know what I was going to do. But when I was in college studying social service work, I was introduced into network marketing. And network marketing was a completely different world of people, everyone. And that's really where my personal development journey started. It was just everybody in this space who was talking about dreams and goals and, thinking bigger, dreaming bigger. And I was like, what is happening? And that was the first time that I ever heard about entrepreneurship, because no one in my family was really an entrepreneur. And that was really where something shifted. And I was surrounded by a group of people that wanted more out of life. And that naturally progressed into me diving into public speaking and sharing my story. And then it was really in 2015 when I entered into a like amateur public speaking competition. And again, I have no idea what propelled me to jump into this because I was petrified. I still hadn't gotten over that fear, but I did it anyways. And I was just wanted to challenge myself. And, you know, when I was preparing for this speaking competition, I was thinking that I was just going to be sharing something surface level, something that was just, you know, how did I find my purpose? And it just didn't feel deep enough. And I wanted to be a little bit more vulnerable and challenge myself. And I decided to share my struggle and my journey with confidence and body image. And that was the night that I really fell in love with storytelling. And I think that was the night that everything shifted in my life personally, because I went on to do more speaking engagements and just was digging deeper to find the stories that I could tell people, because I loved what happened afterwards was having conversations with people one-on-one saying, wow, you know, your story, you sharing that really inspired me.
Yeah.
And it was the night I fell in love with storytelling. And from there, more speaking happened. And then I decided to write my book, The Key to Happiness. And it was just this very natural progression. When I published my book, I thought I was going to go down the route of life coaching, but it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel aligned. And what was also happening is people were asking me, how did you write a book? How did you do it? You know, people who were twice my age saying, you know, I've always wanted to do it, or they had something on their computer that they never published. And it kind of broke my heart. And it was just something that I fell in love with, was helping people and empowering people to tell their story, share their story. And this is where I'm at now, is I fell in love with helping people write their books and tell their stories.
Yeah. I love your journey. And when you started talking about the shift that you had with your first public speaking, I got full goosebumps. It's just, yeah, I could feel, yeah, I can feel that energy when you said you shifted. It really was made a big impact in your life, obviously.
Yeah.
A few things I want to ask you that popped up as you were talking. So, you were talking about how you found it really hard to share your truth, your story, your story, what you thought, what you feel. And it's such a common thing for most people because we're so afraid of what other people think of us when we speak our truth.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just love how you've progressed from that person who was so shy to this person who's like, I'm sharing my story with the world and helping people through that. So looking back at it, how does it make you feel to see yourself progress so far? Like if you were that person before, looking at you today, how would you feel? Like, yeah.
I feel so proud. Like that is the one thing that I've always acknowledged myself, like internally, for that, for the journey that has unfolded. And sometimes I'm completely amazed, and other times I'm also like, what happened? Where did I just decide to shift and say, you know what, I'm not going to live that life. I'm not going to be that person. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint, but you know, and really this is what The Key to Happiness was all about. The book that I wrote was embracing your story. And that's why I decided to look back at my entire life, even though I was writing it and publishing it at the age of 24. I know that probably doesn't seem like a lot, but there was a lot. There was a lot that I went through and overcame. And I just, as no pun intended, just open book wanted to share that. And I look back and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
If a 24-year-old can do that, anybody can do that.
Yeah, I just love that. And I love being able to share these kind of stories with people because like you help people share their story, and part of me doing this podcast is to help people again share their story. So I just love how it's just different ways of helping people share their stories and how important it is for that connection and to help others get inspired to take that step to do something with their life for the better.
Yeah. And you know what? Stories really are the way, I always say, it's the way that we can really create a deeper connection, and it creates conversation.
Yeah.
It's not, we can live two totally different paths. And I find what stories do is it allows me to understand what it's like to walk in your shoes, what it's like to live your life.
Yeah.
That's what stories allow to happen.
Yeah. And that allows us to have different perspectives so that we can have compassion for others' journey
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not so narrow-minded and not, not be able to accept other people's point of views and perspectives, which there's a lot of that going on in the world right now. So it's just so
Absolutely.
important to share the stories to allow everyone to just have a different view and accept other people's views.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said that better. I think that's the key is what's happening, I feel like, is we're so just like in our own space and we're just not listening to understand. And I find that such a big difference is when you're having a conversation with someone, it really has to come from a place of listening to understand rather than listening to respond, which is what we're so used to.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I want to ask you, network marketing, I find it fascinating because for me, same as you, that was kind of when I first started my personal development journey. And
Nice.
I find it really fascinating because if you took the normal path of just going to school and then getting a job, and which was what I did until, like, in the last few years, and then you discover network marketing and it's like, what is this world of people that,
Yep.
it's quite amazing. And but there's so many people that are have very negative views around network marketing.
Hmm.
What do you like, I guess, what do you have to say for people who are very narrow-minded about things to help them become a bit more open?
Mm, that's a good question. And I don't even know if I have the answer because I feel like at the end of the day, if you being narrow minded is not really going to get you anywhere.
Mm,
If we're so closed off to things, we're missing out on possible opportunities. And that just, I find if I was so narrow minded when it came to this opportunity of network marketing, I don't know where I would be.
yeah,
My life would have been unfolded completely different. So yeah, I don't know what the right, I mean, there's never going to be a right
yeah.
answer, but ultimately, like there is possibility of missing opportunities if you're so focused and just have this tunnel vision and you don't stop to look at what else is being offered.
Yeah, it's just really allowing opportunities and not just saying no to everything because it's not what you've been taught, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah,
thing is, as a young individual, I found that just what's really helped me get super clear on what it is that I'm meant to do. And the thing is I believe, even though I am only 27 now, I've actually believed that I found the thing that I meant to do. And I'm like so ready to do this for the rest of my life. Like that's
yeah,
how passionate I am. But what I attest to that is being so open to try new things. Like I did so much different volunteering. I volunteered abroad in Nicaragua. Like I was just so open to testing different things and trying out different things. And it just really helped me get super clear on what it is that I'm meant to do and really allowed me to have such a fulfilling life again at the age of 27.
yeah. That's amazing. I'm 11 years older than you, so that's amazing that, when I was 27, I was on my I'm a pharmacist, so I was getting into my career and building that, and very narrow in terms of, okay, I'm a professional and that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And really not allowing other opportunities to come because we've been taught you're a professional, that's your life.
Yeah,
And yeah, and other things are not as good because you're a healthcare professional,
exactly.
that kind of thing. So yeah, I love that. And testing new things out, if you don't test it, you don't know, right? There's a lot of people that I've worked with where they hate the job, right?
Yeah.
Even though, yes, that's what they studied 4 years of their life, and they're stuck in this job for the next like 20, 30, 40 years, and they're unwilling to try anything even though they hate their job. So why not
Yeah.
take that risk to just
Yeah.
do something different and see if you like it?
Yeah, and that's, the interesting power of choice that we have. I say, like ultimately people who feel like they're stuck, that's choice, right? Like
Yeah.
that is just you choosing to stay in your comfort zone. That's what you know, and I get it. We don't like change. Um, but I mean, ultimately the grass is really greener on the other side when you really decide to break free from that and be able to, like, I can't imagine being miserable. Like
Mm.
I really can't, even for, and maybe I've always had this like little piece of me that's always felt this, but whenever I'm starting to feel not challenged, I mean, I still, everything that I've created, I'm still working full time, which is, I'm proud that I've been able to do so much working full time.
Yeah.
But when I don't feel challenged in my full time, I don't want to stay there. I make the switch, even if it's something completely different. Like that is experiencing life and going through that. And we don't have to be unhappy. That's not what life is actually about. And I think we're so used to seeing that. Like we're
Yeah.
used to seeing our parents work, and
Yeah.
that's what it's been about, right?
Yeah.
But life actually doesn't have to be that way. And we can actually experience more and have more if we're doing the things that bring us joy, happiness, all of that.
Yeah. I love that. Such wise words for a young person. I love it. And I love that you said it is about choice. If you're miserable, it's a choice that you make. It sounds very harsh and it sounds
Yeah,
mean, whatever you want to call it, but it is. You choose to be miserable. You choose to be stuck. If you want to get
absolutely.
unstuck, you can choose to find someone to help you. You don't have to be stuck forever.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, is after my accident, I was a happy young, even though I was shy, I was happy. But after my accident, I became very angry at the world. And that's where I really started to learn all these different things afterwards. When my mom, she made a comment, she said, "Ashley, you don't have to hate the world." And this was like a year later. And I was just putting myself in this suffering, and I was miserable and I was pissed off.
Yeah.
But I was choosing all of those things. I was choosing to focus on the things that happened, right? Like, why did this have to happen to me? Instead of saying, wow, I'm so grateful that, I really didn't have that severe injury,
Yeah.
right? Like it could have been so much worse. And it's really a matter of where we choose to focus on. We can choose to focus on the negative, or we can choose to focus on the positive
Yeah.
and feel good.
Yeah. Find the gratitude in the experience, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'd love for you to share more of your love and wisdom with us, Ashley. So you probably touched on the topic already, but what was the particular experience that you found the most challenging for you, but led to your biggest breakthrough?
Mm. I mean, the public speaking was probably one of those moments. I would say there's probably two. So definitely the experience with public speaking. Like I can still put myself on that stage in that moment, and my legs were shaking. Like I stood in one spot for, it was a 3-minute speech, and I stood in one spot the entire time. I did not move an inch. I was first up. I couldn't believe it. All because like my name started with A. They went by alphabetical order, and I couldn't believe it. Um, but ultimately, it was the experience that really changed my life. Like if I didn't have that experience, again, I don't know where I would be. But the other side of that too is, when I was on my own healing journey, and a lot of this was, you know, as a young, my parents split up when I was very young, so my dad wasn't really around in my life growing up, and then, and he was in the US as I grew up, so he wasn't really around, and we didn't really have that much of a relationship. And then, he ended up moving back to Canada, and I thought, oh, we're gonna have a relationship. This is great. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen initially or right away. And so there was a lot of healing that I had to go through.
Mm,
And that relationship, or non-existent relationship with my dad, actually affected my relationship with men in general.
yeah.
So for me, my healing journey really started with my dad, and actually confronting and having a conversation, and really being able to and ready to forgive and just completely let go of all the hurt and pain that was associated to move forward.
Yeah.
That was a moment that changed my life, because I went on to then do that exact same thing and confront, ex partners, like ex boyfriends, and not expecting anything in return. But I sent out like just a message saying, hey, I apologize. I take ownership for how I was in the relationship, how I handled things. And it was such an empowering moment, because I realized after doing that, I took back power of everything. So though it was like confronting all of the unsettled areas in my life.
Yeah.
And who does that in their 20s?
I know.
Who does that?
I love that.
So, but it was because I think it was through a seminar or something along those lines, that it was just talking about ownership, taking ownership and responsibility for your life. And it empowered me. And I just always recognized to do that. And it was those moments. So speaking, but also healing and mending the relationships, and really just not like putting the past in the past and not carrying things.
Yeah.
They changed my life.
Yeah. Wow, I've got so much deep respect for you, and I just find you so inspiring. And really being able to confront your dad and having, those conversations, and with your exes. I mean, even people in their 50s, 60s, 70s might not be able to do that. So that is just really awesome. And I want to ask you, because you said you obviously had to go through this healing process, and confronting the demon, I guess, was one of the tools that you used with your healing. What were some other tools or teachers that were really helpful throughout your healing process?
Yeah, the one thing that really started the conversation with my dad, I actually decided to write him a letter. And if I rethink about that letter, I probably could have done it a little bit better. There's always room for improvement. But I think I was very angry, and, that's where it came from. And I think that's what also, I expected a response right away from the email, but I wasn't thinking about his perspective. And that's the other side, right? We're in our own head, and we're only looking life through our lens, and not everything's about us, right? So that was the other side of it. But I chose to write him a letter. And I think that writing that letter just helped me release everything. So even though it might have came off very angry, I'm happy that I gave it to him, and it sparked this conversation that we could now be in a place in our lives where we have a relationship. And then the other thing I would say is books. Like I never liked reading when I was younger. I hated reading. And until I found self-help, personal growth, personal development books. And the one that changed my life, again, I think it's one of those things where what I'm starting to realize, I recommend this book to everyone, and probably half the people are like, what is she talking about? But ultimately, it was what I needed at where I was at in my journey, and it was perfect. And it was The 4 Agreements. That book changed my life, and I think about it constantly. I'm always reminded of, not to take things personally. It's the book that changed my life. So those are the two things. Like, writing is such a good outlet. It's so good.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, definitely writing. I remember when I was younger and I get really angry, I'll just write everything in my journal and just let it out. And it just feels so much better. It's like, oh, okay, I'm okay now after writing it out. Yeah. And,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the tools that I learned to heal, I guess, like for yourself, you were writing a letter to your dad. For some people who aren't at that stage where they're brave enough to give the letter to that person, it's just writing the letter, at least getting it out. And when you're ready, then you can give the letter if you ever are. But just the act of writing it out makes such a big difference.
Absolutely. It's literally, I think what happens is that weight on your shoulders really comes off when you just let it out. And that's where I think we're so afraid to be vocal, to talk about our feelings or our thoughts or our emotions. And I get it, because I was there. I struggled. I used to get, if you're with the chakras, I only learned about the chakras later on in life. But I realize now why, as a kid and as a young adult, I experienced so many sore throats was because I was literally holding everything in,
Yeah.
always. And I
Yeah.
would always get sore throats. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of that aha moment, right? Whereas it's still a challenge. It can be a challenge to speak our truth. But one thing that someone told me, and I really love it, was, when you're experiencing something and you're, in a confrontation or an argument, ask for permission. Like, ask the other person, hey, can I speak my truth? And how they receive it, it's not up to you how they receive it. Like, that's on them and that's their choice, but they gave you permission to speak your truth.
Yeah.
And we just can't like take it personally how people respond or react.
Yeah. I love that tip. That's beautiful. Such a great tip. And with the throat chakra, I think women especially have a lot of issues around their throat chakra because there's just so much suppression of our voice for so long. So it's such a it's so important to try and just release that, release
Yeah,
it, and just clear your throat chakra and really yeah. And as you said, speaking your truth, it's not just once you start speaking your truth that you can always do it. Is a constant work in progress to continue to do it, because the next thing you say you might actually second guess yourself, and then you have to
yeah.
go remind yourself. And that whole awareness that you talked about as an awakened feminine, that is the whole awareness, being aware of everything around you and being aware of how you can speak your truth and how you can be authentic.
Absolutely. And that's the other side of it, right? With awareness, you can change anything. You can change anything in your life as long as you're aware. And that's what, is so important, to really just look at. I always kind of describe it as looking at yourself from a bird's eye view, and, just in a gentle, non-judgment way, just asking yourself, how can I do better?
Yeah.
How can I be a better individual? And that's the thing, from every single moment. Let's say, if we're thinking about speaking our truth, there's still times when, if I'm in an argument, I just hold it back. And then I'm learning that I need to kind of take space for myself first, put my
Mm.
thoughts together, and then come.
Yeah.
And it's finding what works for us, what we need, and honoring that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. So, Ashley, I want to ask you, I mean, you've had so much that you've experienced already at such a young age, but what do you believe is the greatest lessons you've learned so far in your life?
Oof. Hmm. I think one thing is, true forgiveness is about letting go. The thing that happens when we forgive, there's this saying that goes around that says, forgive but don't forget.
Mm.
I totally don't believe that. I believe in the complete opposite. I believe in letting things go completely and not bringing things up. And I had to learn that with my dad if I wanted to have some kind of relationship. Like, I wanted him more in my life than not, you
Yeah.
know? And in order for me to do that, I just had to let go. So what that looks like is, whenever there's something that happens, I don't bring up the past. Like, I don't bring it up to hurt that person again. And I find that is even more empowering and more freeing, because you're not holding on to this more weight. If you forgive but don't forget, that was a big thing that I needed to learn.
Yeah.
The other side of it too is that our stories matter, and it's the thing that I remind people now every day, that no matter what, your story matters. Like, the things that you have gone through and that you've overcome throughout your life,
Yeah.
there's a reason for it. There's meaning to it. Sometimes a lot of the times people are afraid to share their story because they feel like it's not dramatic. It's not this crazy thing that's happened, but it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
People resonate. I don't feel like I've had very, very traumatic experiences. A lot of people come from single parent households, right? But
Mm.
that doesn't diminish my experiences,
Yeah.
so um, your story matters is the thing that I had to learn, and the thing that I remind myself every day, and I choose to remind everybody.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful lessons learned. I just love that. and such great tips for people to just kind of move forward with their lives. Letting go is it's hard, but it's necessary. I
Mhm.
mean, it's the whole, people in their relationships. I mean, you were with your dad, but even, partners, if you keep bringing up the past and, oh, you did that like 2 years
Yeah.
ago and you did this last week, and you let it go.
Yeah.
Every second is a new moment. So get over it.
Absolutely.
What's past is past. You sorted out your differences and you move on. You don't keep bringing back the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that too is asking yourself, why do I do this?
Yeah.
Like, why does this happen? And I didn't realize until later on how much of an effect that, my non-existent relationship with my dad had affected my other relationships, why I would like automatically cling to men because I wanted that male figure, but at the same time I was very closed off. It was like
Mm,
this dance, right? But there's always something to be learned in the things that you do
yeah.
and whatever. And there again, there's no judgment that you have to put on yourself, but if you see things that you do that are a pattern, there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity for you to grow and to become aware of something and to change something.
Yeah.
Like, I just believe that we all have that power to make a change. If I went from being someone who was terribly shy and is now able to get on stage and talk to audiences, anybody can change.
Yeah.
If I've at a young age, forgiving my dad and going through that process, like we can always change, we can always do better. It's just the choice and the desire to be better
Yeah,
and to want
exactly.
more from ourselves.
Yeah. And when things keep happening and it's the same pattern, it's the universe trying to tell you, you need to learn your lesson. You're not learning your lesson. Let's keep going with this pattern until you learn the
Yeah.
lesson.
And that's the thing, right? Like, sometimes what happens is people are going from relationship to relationship thinking, oh, it's the other person.
Yeah.
And that's the other side that I feel like we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. And
Yeah.
so if there is something that you just keep seeing, like, it's time to shine the light on yourself
Yeah.
and just look. Again, it's not about being judgmental or judging yourself. It's an opportunity. There's easily just probably some healing that work that can come through. But yeah, when you're starting to see these patterns, like, there's something to learn here. There's something that for you.
Yeah. You're the common denominator. Right?
Exactly.
All the
Exactly.
other people have changed, but you're the only person that's the same. So, yeah. And we tend to just not want to shine that light on ourselves because it's scary. And
Absolutely.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
okay. It's actually a good thing to look within and sort and heal yourself so that you can progress and have those patterns stop repeating themselves.
Yeah. And just live a life that is actually true happiness, right? Like,
Yeah,
I think oftentimes people are saying, oh, yeah, I'm happy. But really, really, truly, are you happy?
yeah,
And if you look deep within and the answer is no, like, there's something that you can change and something that you can do. Ultimately, another big thing that I learned throughout my life was that we create our reality. And I read it in a book, and it was the moment I read that, I realized I actually had this aha moment. I was like, oh
yeah,
my God, I created this,
yeah,
and it's so powerful to recognize that from moment to moment with your choices, you're creating your reality.
yeah,
And ultimately, like, you only have control over yourself. You can't control other people at all,
yeah,
and those are the more things that I've learned that are so freeing. Like, I just don't feel the weight anymore. We carry such a weight, and if you really let that go and you stop trying to control other people and only focus on controlling yourself, you'll feel a lot less lighter.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Love that. Thank you. So, Ashley, I want to just take a bit of a turn. And you have mentioned about self love and self confidence issues that you've had in the past. My thing for me on my journey was also self love, self confidence, self esteem, all
Mhm.
those good things that we
Yep.
need to work on constantly. So, as an awakened feminine, what is your definition or what does self love mean to you?
Mm. What the way that I'm redefining that now is doing the things that allow me to feel good. I find that what I love and I've always loved as a young kid was dancing. And I thought like my dream when I was a kid was I'm going to be a dancer. And I love just throwing on, music as I'm making breakfast and just dancing. Like
Yeah.
it's about doing the things that light you up and that bring you joy moment to moment. And if it's your favorite song and you like to sing and at full volume, like do that.
Yeah.
It's that's what self-love is, and really taking care of yourself in so many different aspects. It's not just, oh, I'm going to give myself a pedicure, I'm going to go and take a bath. Like that is not just self-love. Self-love is allowing yourself to heal, to allowing yourself to be happy, to experience happiness,
Yeah.
and to accept yourself in all that you are. And that's, I feel like, is the hardest part. We're so focused. I know for me, I was so focused on what I was seeing in the mirror. That was my focus, and I, for some reason, wasn't happy with what I was seeing in the mirror. But this is just a physical body, and it's more so in here.
Yeah.
And if we can, and that was my journey, was falling in love with who I was as an individual, the qualities that I had. And when I really shined the light on those aspects of myself, I was kind of like, well, what's not to love? I'm such a caring individual. Like, what's not to love about myself? And it was less about this physical thing that we're seeing.
Yeah. I love that. You're awesome. So why wouldn't people love you, right? And we
Yeah.
just need to remind ourselves every single day that we're awesome, awesome human beings, right?
Yeah.
But we are our, own worst critic. And we criticize
Yes.
every single thing. Oh, I accidentally did that, or, I said that, I shouldn't have said that. We worry about so many of that stuff that's not important when we really should be
Mm-hmm.
focusing on ourselves.
Absolutely. And showing up well, and I think that's part of what I realized as going on my journey and being in relationships was coming in at 50% and thinking that the other person needs to bring the other 50%.
Yeah.
But what I've experienced now, especially in the relationship that I see two whole beings coming together.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about. And that's why it's so important to have that journey of coming to a place where you love yourself, because you can't find it. Nobody else is going to give it to you. And that's the best kind of relationship. And what we miss and we forget to develop is the relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, I've just loved our conversation so much.
Me too.
I want to ask you, as we're talking about self-love, what are your top three things that you do to ensure you give yourself the self-love that you deserve? I know you talked about dancing, but I don't know if that's one of the top three.
Yeah, it's definitely, I find that I'm realizing again that it's the thing that it lights me up. So I feel like I just kind of like let it go for so long, but it fills me up so much and it makes me so happy. So definitely dancing. And as I can be quite reserved, like I don't know about this introvert extrovert. I feel like I can be a combination of both. But I know for myself that I need time to myself. I need time just by myself where I'm not doing anything with anyone, quiet time, and honoring myself for that. Because I feel like when I don't put that or I don't get that on a regular basis, I start to see myself completely out of whack, out of balance.
Yeah.
And I need it. Even if it's just like sitting and watching a movie, I need it. I just need space to myself. I think that's the two things. Those are the two main things that I would say. But you know what? Even spending time with my family has always been something that lights me up too. I value family so much, and especially my godson and my little brother and sister. Like I love spending time with them, spending time especially around kids. Like it's so different. It's a break and it's different, but family is truly so important too.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, Ashley, before we wrap up, I'd really love to know what is your personal mission right now and what is setting your soul on fire?
Mm. Uh, well, my personal mission, like I said, it's to remind everybody that your story matters and to simply spread love. And I think that's what it's always been about for me. The journey that I've been on was always came about love for myself, spreading love to other individuals and helping people see that, after I experienced loving myself, I wanted everybody to experience that.
Yeah.
So that has been such a big part of my journey. And what I feel like I'm meant to do in this world is help people see the love that they can have for themselves. And just the thing that is lighting me up is my business right now. Like it's only been, actually, it hasn't even been a year yet that I
Yeah.
fully stepped into this role as a book coach. And I can't believe what's happened so far. We've helped people publish their books, tell their stories, and I just it gets me so excited to see
Yeah.
people finally put, a dream that they've had and actually finally get it out there. And just seeing people fully own and embrace their story is just everything that I love, and it's the message that I stand for.
I love that. I can definitely feel your passion through the screen and see your beautiful face just light up as you're talking about what's setting your soul on fire. So I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your love and wisdom with us today. If people want to find out more about you and how they can work with you, hopefully to share their stories, where should they go?
Yes, so Instagram is my favorite platform. So it's the Studio Press is my Instagram handle, and it's myself and my co-founder Tina. We are changing things up together, so that's where we are.
Beautiful. And I'll have all your details and any recommended resources in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you. And until next time, I love you, I believe in you, and you are worth taking that first step to the life of your dreams.